It's Friday, the 15th of May, 2020, day 64 of the new normal at Santa Monica College.
This is the Pandemic Podcast, your twice-a-week news and culture guide to surviving and thriving in the age of coronavirus. I'm Glenn ZUCMAN.
And I'm Jackie SEDLEY. Today on the podcast, Superintendent and President of SMC, Dr. Kathryn Jeffery. Dr. Jeffery, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
President Jeffery, 108 days from today is the first day of fall 2020 at Santa Monica College. Can you paint a picture for me of what that first day of fall is going to look like?
You know, I'm trying to envision that because when we started our spring semester, we had a normal start to the spring. And then we quickly transitioned a few weeks in to this remote environment. So to be able to start the fall semester in remote, knowing that that's what we're going to do, I would say it looks something like this. We would have the normal type of inquiries, questions, phone calls, going in and out of admissions and records, because students always have questions during the first start of the semester. They'll have questions about the courses that they didn't get. They will have questions about whether or not their financial aid has been processed. So financial aid office will be busy all of these offices will be busy in a remote sense, although we will have a number of essential staff working in the admissions and records office and some in the financial aid office as well, just not as many, to respond to phone calls, which we've been doing even throughout the spring, to respond to emails and to do stay on top of the processing for the financial aid awards for students. We'll probably also have a number of students who are reaching out and contacting counselors via Zoom, which they've been doing. In fact, our contact with counselors has doubled. It's gone up during this time. And those are the kinds of things that would happen on ground. But students are more comfortable now in a remote setting. So the number of inquiries that we're going to receive through remote will probably be very, very high at the start of the semester.
Do you see the campus being open to any degree for any students, any labs, in any aspect?
You know, the campus is essentially closed and will remain closed in the fall with a few exceptions. And I know that you had a chance to communicate with Grace Singh-Smith, our public information officer. So you're aware of the fact that we're investigating the ways in which we can bring on ground a few courses where that face-to-face contact is so vital to the instruction that happens in that class. I don't know, I don't think Grace gave you any possibilities of what those courses might include, but I can do that. We're trying to look at a way to ensure that our nursing students have that kind of contact that's required for them to qualify for the nursing exam when they complete their coursework. So that's a critical face-to-face kind of on-ground activity that needs to happen, and we're trying to make that available to our students for fall. We may also have some lab classes, perhaps science, some of the sciences that really aren't working as well in a remote setting. They may be able to have the science labs meet 2 or 3 times during the semester for certain types of lab experiences. We just don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but the faculty will be involved in discussing that with the department chairs and with the vice president for academic affairs.
So even though science labs wouldn't be 100% face-to-face, they'd have limited maybe contact.
That's what we're aiming for. We just think that's so important to the learning experience. The faculty have asked for that, the students have asked for that, and we really do want to try to provide that in a safe way.
What about contact activities like athletics or dance?
You know, athletics is something that we're not likely going to be able to do. We haven't made a complete ruling on that yet. The four-year athletics association has already come out to say that four-year sports will not be operating in the fall. Typically, the two-year schools would follow that, but we haven't heard anything specifically yet from our California Community Colleges Athletics Association in that regard. But I had a conversation with the athletics director yesterday and over the weekend. We were talking about athletics, and what we're sure of is that there are a few sports that we might be able to do on ground, single sports that where only a single individual is involved. For example, some of the track and field types events where it's a single runner. But that's not, when we think of fall sports, we think of something like football, which can't play football with everybody being 6 feet apart and wearing a mat. So it's not going to work.
Right.
We are during the summer going to make available a way for our athletes to do conditioning at home. It is remote, and they'll be led through the conditioning exercises with the coach and with a coach or with an instructor from kinesiology. But we'll have that type of engagement with the student athletes because we want them to be able to stay in shape for whenever we're able to resume athletic activities for them.
There have been a lot of memos kind of circulating around SMC students and faculty with updates, and needless to say, things are constantly ever changing. So are there any possibilities that through the fall semester, there will be a point where we switch to on ground, or will all of fall be entirely remote?
We have talked about that. If we were in the remote setting, is there an advantage to coming back, to coming on ground if we were cleared for that and we saw that we were able to do so safely? That's a big if we were able to do that safely. I mean, that's a huge if. And what we saw in the spring as we started on ground and tried to move quickly into remote, it was so unsettling initially for people, especially if students had not had a course as distance ed or in a remote way of engaging with a faculty member and with other students. It was very difficult for faculty initially to wrap their minds around this if they had not taught in a DE mode. So I think once people kind of got over the shock of it and we were able to do some initial speed professional development to get people ready for this, at least on the college side of things with the faculty and our support staff to offer support services, things seem to get up and going, and the faculty, the staff started to have some comfort in the environment. But they also started to notice some things that still weren't working quite the way they wanted them to. And so we've discovered that additional professional development is needed. We were not able to give the students that type of crash preparation before going into the remote mode. For fall, to answer the question, if we were trying to reverse that and go from being in remote to on ground, could we do that smoothly? What we would be returning to on ground would not be the same as what we left when we went from on ground to remote. So I would expect that that would be a really big challenge to come to reverse it. It would be my preference, unless some dramatic shift occurs with the way the coronavirus is escalating and de-escalating, then escalating again, unless we had a real solid way of monitoring whether or not people had the illness and tracing the people they've been in contact with, if they became ill, and if there was some type of a vaccine. If all of those things just fell into place very nice and in a very nice and neat way, then I would see us maybe looking at spring on ground. But again, what we would return to on ground is not what we left when we went into remote. So it would be very different.
In terms of enrollment, obviously numbers are down according to the memos that have been sent out. I know that during the recession in 2008, enrollment numbers at a lot of community colleges actually skyrocketed because people lost their jobs. They wanted to go back to school and gain new skills within the educational realm, or because they lost their jobs and wanted to take the time to learn new skills in general. Do we expect anything to replicate that pattern, or do we think that numbers will stay fairly low for the fall?
It is very uncertain. Right now, our domestic student enrollment is looking pretty good. Whether that will hold or not as we go forward, I'm not sure. One thing that may be helping us in this moment is that students knew that they would be taking classes in a remote mode. So they know what to expect, they know what they're signing up for. The economy, of course, plays into this, as you said, with unemployment rates being high. Usually people come to seek education. Even though there's uncertainty about the types of jobs they will be able to prepare for in the end after their education is achieved. But I would expect that our numbers will increase in some ways. Our international enrollment is not likely to go up. It's a moving target. It's the best way I can say it.
No one younger than 102 has experienced anything like this pandemic in their lifetimes. However, you have been an administrator for a long time. In your experience, with whether it's shootings or natural disasters, how have you seen colleges respond, and how is SMC doing in this moment?
In this moment, colleges have responded amazingly well. They have shifted very quickly into moving all of their courses into remote in relative short order, from a few days to maybe a couple of weeks to get ready to go into remote teaching. From a fiscal perspective, because enrollments have been down overall in community colleges, not only in California, but across the country, enrollments have been down. The impact of COVID-19 on our enrollment has been pretty substantial. And we'll have to see what happens going forward. But overall, I think our students, our faculty, our staff have been real troopers throughout this kind of switch of things, if you will, in going from what we thought we knew and understood to something that nobody understands. And we're all trying to figure it out along the way. I'm seeing just a lot of willingness for people to accept that this is not business as usual, to understand that that there will be some, I call it bumps along the way, and to just kind of go along this ride with us and to demonstrate a tremendous amount of patience. And the willingness to cooperate and collaborate has just been at very, very high levels. And to problem solve in a creative way that really gives new meaning to that word creative. People are truly being resourceful. As a college administrator, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that aspect of what I'm seeing in my colleagues and what I'm seeing in students too. Yesterday, I was able to participate in the drive-up food pantry that is being held every week, and being led really by a stalwart team from our SMC Foundation. And they're building that team out and including people from across all areas of the college who are on campus anyway as part of their essential work assignments. And people seem so excited to be able to see students, not on the computer screen, but to see people 6 or 7 feet away from them. Everybody's masked, and many times we're all of the workers, we're in gloves as well. We've gone through our personal protective equipment training, so that We know how to handle ourselves when other people are around, but we're distributing the food, and every single car, the students express their gratitude and appreciation for what's being done. I asked them questions, and I had a chance to do this yesterday. How's it going for you at home? Tell me what's happening in your home setting that's enabling you to be focused when you're, in front of that screen. I asked different questions, obviously, of different people as they come through. I can't have a lengthy conversation with each car of students, but I can say, how's it going for you? Have you had any tests online? How are you adjusting? Or how many people in your household are homeschooling right now? You and your kids, and that kind of a thing. And people are very responsive to say, we're getting used to it. It was hard at first, but we're getting used to it. That's kind of the general response I'm getting from students.
In terms of care for the students, the CARES Act was just awarded to SMC, right? And it was $6.1 million in financial aid for enrolled students, correct?
Right.
That was the number I got down. So how is that looking? How has that process gone? And what are we likely to see for the distribution of that money?
Well, we have, through our financial aid office, our Vice President for Enrollment Services, Teresita Rodriguez, and the financial aid personnel led by Tracy Hunter is our new Associate Dean for Financial Aid Services, and then Stacy Neal, and the other members of the team. And there it's a whole host of very dedicated folks in financial aid. They've been working on a rubric to figure out the way to allocate the funding for students based on need, and not just the students who were already eligible for financial aid, but students who have demonstrated need because of the way they've been impacted in their lives by COVID-19. So that actually opened up the ways in which we could look at students for distribution. So that was a plus for us. Also, they've been working with faculty who are giving recommendations of students based on what they've learned from the students about the need that they might have and how their families have been impacted. So that team of people in the financial aid office, they've developed this rubric that would determine how to make that $6.1 million go as far as it can, but give students as much support individually as we can. So the least amount of the awards has been $300, designated to be $300, and the highest award would be $1,000. And the funding actually came in over the weekend.
Great.
I know you heard from Grace, the public information officer, that we were still waiting for the money, anxiously waiting. And the funding came in over the weekend. The rubric had already been established. The team had been working on this, and they were able to start distributing the funding right away on Monday and Tuesday. And some students have already received their money.
You mentioned spring 2021. I know that's quite a ways off, but do you have any thoughts about spring 2021 at this point?
Mm-hmm. I do have some thoughts about it. I would love to say that for spring 2021, based on the way information is coming in and the trend data is indicating in some way, that we would be able to implement a return to operations on ground that has us more on ground than in remote. It might be some type of a hybrid configuration for spring. Even what we're going to do in fall is a slight hybrid, but it could be more of a hybrid in the spring where we have more on-ground activity. That's what I'm hoping. And I'm also hoping that we'll be able to resume some of our athletics operations. If we can do that safely in spring, I would love to be able to do that for our students. Not just the student athletes who participate, but other students on campus who enjoy watching the competitions. So those are things that I hope to be able to do. The reality is there's a lot going on in the scientific community that indicates we still have a great deal of uncertainty around how the virus is operating, how it's spreading. There's still a lot of uncertainty around how to control it. And, but here's a good piece of news. At Santa Monica College, we were able to respond quickly to a request from the governor, Governor Newsom, and from County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, LA County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, to open a testing site here at SMC. Right. So we do have a testing site that we opened up. It's been in operation for about a week now. It opened up very quickly. We received the request on a Thursday, and by Monday, we were able to have things in gear to receive equipment, to do the setup, and it actually opened doors Thursday a week ago. I went out for the testing the first day. I wanted to see how everything was flowing, make sure it was operating smoothly, because when we invite people in, I want to make sure it's running well, even though it's not my operation to run. I want to feel good about what we're putting out there. And it's really a nice testing site, and it's walk up. So you don't have to have a car. If you using some other mode to move around, you can walk up to the facility and walk in. It's really nice.
A little closer into the future, graduation. Obviously, unfortunately, that will not be in person, but students are graduating and there will be festivities hosted for that. A lot of those students are also transferring in the fall to universities that'll be online. What kind of feedback have you heard from students in terms of graduation and transferring to an online, another remote facility?
I think the thing that's hitting me most about what I'm hearing from students is the level of disappointment they have that we're not able to hold a face-to-face ceremony. They understand it, but they're disappointed. I know what that's like to be a graduate and not have a graduation ceremony. That happened to me during one of the times that I completed a degree. It happened when I completed my master's degree. The ceremony was canceled. So the impact this is having on students, I get it. So what we're trying to do is create some type of buzz around graduation that will still get them that celebratory moment, but in a different way. And the students are helping actually to craft what that will look like. We have a team of people from the college who are having remote meetings, and students are part of that as well. Our associated students, student government, they're playing a role in this. And I don't know exactly what they're coming up with yet. I know that we will tape some messages that will be aired for the students. We're going to try to use the same type of backdrop to give it that look and feel of sameness, the way you might have if you were on stage. Mm-hmm. I will make some remarks. The trustee chair, Dr. Nancy Greenstein, and our board of trustees has been really very supportive during this whole period of transition. But Dr. Greenstein will give remarks. We have a speaker for the students, just as we would have on stage, and she's the speaker that we're going to have. I'm going to reserve saying who that is right at the moment. I want it to be a surprise when it happens, but she's really—
You're not gonna break that for us.
I'm not. She's a phenomenal speaker and a motivator, and has a connection to the college, and is really proud of being able to engage with us as a speaker for the ceremony. And our academic senate president will speak, and I would like to have one of our students speak as well. So that's kind of what we're aiming for in terms of program. Then there's some fun things that are being planned, I'm told, that will engage people where they are, real time. We're going to do some things on the screen that can create kind of that mortarboard effect, and as though you're wearing the regalia. Some people have asked if they could order the regalia and have their own. And so we're looking at ways, again, to keep it festive, to keep it celebratory. And even though it will be a truly unique way to have a college graduation, students will feel that sense of completion in a way that engages them with the college at this critical high point in their academic journey.
As the president and superintendent of the college, everyone looks to you for strength, for leadership, to tell us, what's going to happen, where we're headed. But obviously you are also a human being. I'm wondering how your kind of personal experience and response to the pandemic has been, and if you've seen any sort of silver linings, either for yourself or for the larger culture in this time kind of isolated a little bit.
Well, you mentioned earlier kind of about my career and maybe some of the things that I and other college leaders might have seen in their careers. For me personally, I lived in a community where I was vice president and we had wildfires. They would sweep in and we'd have to try to figure out what to do quickly, again, to keep people safe. I lived in a community where we also had snow and ice, and we'd have to make decisions about whether to close the campus. I lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota, when the bridge collapsed, and we had students and staff who would be traveling across that bridge as they were leaving the campus or en route to the campus. I worked at a college where we had a shooting, and one of the individuals died. So when I came to Santa Monica College, I kind of come with that scope of experience that helps me to see things through a veil of calmness that I don't even understand myself sometimes. I have to give myself space afterwards to kind of do a crash and personally debrief and go through my own experience around it. With all of those things that I mentioned, they happened and then they were over. With this, we have no idea when this will be over. And I think that level of uncertainty for me is unsettling. And I have to make sure that I don't let that take me off of my ability to focus and kind of stay in the moment and manage through those things that I can manage, and to the extent that any of this is truly manageable. So that's a challenge for me as a college leader. It makes me want to do my best to make sure that I give people good information, that I don't just think about it as a problem to solve, an academic problem or operational problem to solve, but that I think about the impact this is having on the lives of individuals, where they live, in their homes and in their communities. And so all of that's very real to me. And even in my own home, I have a niece who has a compromised health situation. And so she's nervous whenever I leave to come out and come to work and come back home. The first thing she says to me is, wash your hands, wash your hands. And I'm like, girl, don't make me nervous up in here. I'm trying to come home and relax. But, so that's my reality. So I think I have some sense of what may be happening in other people's homes if they have people that they care about as they go in and out, perhaps to go grocery shopping, and then have to come back home. You wonder, is this day going to be a safe day for us all? So I'm really cognizant of how our students are attempting to manage through this, how faculty, our staff, other administrators at the college, other professionals, whether they're my colleagues here at SMC or elsewhere in the higher education spectrum. Right now, we are collectively dealing with this situation, and we're supporting each other as well. I have been in more Zoom meetings. I didn't even know, I had never been in a Zoom meeting before. And now sometimes it seems like I'm Zooming constantly from one meeting to the next. And I'm finding that I have to really be conscious of my physical body to get up in between meetings, or even when it's on Zoom, to put my device on pause for the audio and the visual, so that I can stand and stretch and do some bend over, touch my toes if I can touch my toes. But to do some things to just kind of break up the physical monotony of sitting in the same chair or all day long. So those are some things that are happening in my world. To take off the personal stress and maybe to unload a little steam, I've gone back to some things I used to do as a young person. I used to cook with my mother. I grew up in Oklahoma City, and my mom used to cook for the family because you didn't have a lot of takeout the way that we do these days. As you can see, my hair is quite gray, so I'm not a youngster. So I've been on the planet for a while. Not as long as those other people you were referencing, Glenn, 102 years old, but I've been around for a while. And so what I've been doing at home is I've been baking, cooking more. Most people are cooking more in their home and not going out. I do try to periodically still patronize some of my favorite restaurants that are providing takeout because I want to support local businesses as best I can. But I am cooking more at home and I'm enjoying it. And it's a nice throwback memory to a simpler time. And a time when I had less responsibility. And I'm enjoying that.
Speaking of responsibility, you've been the president of Santa Monica College for a little over 4 years now. Do you have any sense of how long you might like to continue in that role?
Now that's an interesting question. Are you thinking perhaps that the pandemic is going to drive everybody out?
I'm not trying to replace you. I'm just wondering if you have a vision. Is it 10 years? Is it less? Is it more?
I'm enjoying what I'm doing despite the challenges that I'm being faced with in this moment. Higher education means a lot to me. Higher education has given a lot to me. And I bring that perspective to the work that I do. And I really want to help make a difference for students. So I will do this work as long as I can do this work. I will do this work as long as I feel like I'm making an impact on this organization and on higher education overall. I'm involved in the statewide higher education scene, and also on the national level I'm involved. So I hear a lot about what's happening in Washington before we hear about it locally. In our community. The governor's probably hearing some things about the same time I'm hearing it, his people. But I'm hearing it because of my national association affiliation with the National Association for Community Colleges, AACC. So I am enjoying that part of being engaged with this work of helping prepare people for the future. I'm not looking to step away from this. And even coronavirus has not helped me to think about being any place other than where I am right now in this moment, helping prepare the higher education environment to do its best to serve students and their educational, academic, and career goals, and their personal and life goals too. We make a difference in higher ed. I truly believe that.
Dr. Kathryn Jeffery, Superintendent and President of Santa Monica College, thanks for visiting the Pandemic Podcast.
It's my pleasure to talk with you. Thank you. And perhaps I'll see you soon and have a conversation with you where I can tell you where we're making that big transition back to campus. I'm looking forward to that day.
I think we all are.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And you two both be safe out there.
Be safe, be well, and continue to express your humanity.
And check in every Wednesday and Friday for new episodes of the Pandemic Podcast.